Every week, the Payne family cuts straight to the real financial story.
The one question, Bob, everyone's asking is, are we in an artificial intelligence bubble? You've been through boom and bust. What do you think?
No hype, no myths. Just what actually matters to your money.
Does feel very similar to what we experienced in the 90s. Where are we, though? Are we in 1995, 1997, 1999?
Listen to the Pain Points of Wealth on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
A message from McAfee.
I'd say howdy, but I'm not a real cowboy.
And I'm not a real alien.
We're deep fakes, and because of fakes like us,
it's hard to tell what's real.
Unless you have McAfee. McAfee's scam detector automatically identifies text and email scams.
And even deep fakes.
And it works everywhere, even out on the range.
Yeehaw! But you're not even a real cowboy.
If they're faking it, they're not making it past us. Get award-winning scam detection today. McAfee.com/keepitreal.
The Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Podcast Network.
We've been talking about the de facto head of the Russian collusion hoax Mueller investigation, Andrew Weissman, his long history of prosecutorial misconduct and overreach, his sadistic style. It is Andrew Weissman, of course, who ordered the federal prosecutors involved in the Mueller investigation to delete the texts and cell phone memories of their government cell phones after they had been subpoenaed, or after they had been requested by special counsel John Durham. People don't understand that when Bob Barr deputized John Durham, who was a U.S. attorney from Connecticut, to investigate the origins of the Russian collusion hoax, he never gave Mr. Durham subpoena power. So those involved in the seditious conspiracy, like John Brennan, James Comey, Susan Rice, Andrew Weissman, Andrew McCabe, and many others, simply stonewalled. My attorneys were in touch extensively with Durham, with very little follow-up of the evidence that I gave them of prosecutorial misconduct. So in retrospect, I think the Durham appointment was a sop that Bill Barr sought to get critics off of his back in the closing days of the Trump administration. And of course, we know that Bill Barr was presented now with absolute evidence of electoral fraud in Pennsylvania, and he called off the prosecutors and he shut down the investigation. Also, extensive evidence has now surfaced that he worked with Armstrong Williams and others to target other Trump supporters, including yours truly, regarding January 6th, even though I know nothing about January 6th, other than the fact that I spoke on the evening of the 5th, and that my remarks were perfectly appropriate. I exercised my First Amendment right to question the outcome of an election, a right that everyone has. I certainly did not call for violence, and I know nothing about any act that was later declared illegal on January 6th. Any claim that I was involved in, knew in advance about, or condoned any illegal action on January 6th or any other days was found to be false by the FBI. Reuters reported that in April. So having been a victim of Andrew Weissman, he tried to destroy my life. He basically constructed process crimes against me, claiming that I lied about matters that were immaterial. There was no underlying Russian collusion to hide, but it was a very clever indictment written by Weissman. No one would say he wasn't brilliant. I wanted to get another victim of Andrew Weissman's on, given the fact that David Schoen has written an eloquent and compelling letter to President Trump asking him to pardon Vic Orena and Michael Sessa, two men in their 90s, reputed to be an organized crime, but both convicted for crimes that they did, a crime, specifically a murder, they did not commit. And of course it is the claim of the good counselor that Weissman knew this the entire time, David Schoen. So joining me now is Jackie Orena. She is the granddaughter of Victor Orena, a man who in his 90s has severe dementia. He has congestive heart failure. He's a diabetic. He is blind from glaucoma, wheelchair bound, and has an aortic aneurysm, yet he's still in federal custody. Jackie, you have never stopped fighting for his freedom and fighting for the truth. You have been a victim, you and your family, as I was, of Andrew Weissman. Well, I wanted to have you here to talk about this today. Welcome to the Roger Stone Show.
Thank you so much, Roger, for having me. I just have to start with saying that I'm so grateful to have the chance to share my family story. Unfortunately, both of us saw firsthand what happens when government power is misused and people's lives become collateral damage. So I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to have my voice heard. Thank you again.
I'm very glad to have you. David Schoen has laid this out, but I'd like you to lay it out in your own words, because you're the one who's experienced it.
Well, for me, obviously I was a very young girl when all of this happened. I was around 9 years old, so I didn't have a great understanding for what was going on, but like anybody else, I was reading the papers and reading the narrative that was put out about my family. And knowing who they are and coming from a very strong, close-knit Italian family, I knew they were good people, and I couldn't understand all of the stuff that was put out. And as I got older, it really became, I saw my family's battle back and forth. My father was charged just like my grandfather and was facing 4 different counts. He got a little bit lucky on some with all of the evidence that was withheld on my grandfather's case helped get him an acquittal. But the road to get there was not easy, to say the least. So I do want to touch on how I went from a young girl to now and what got me involved in this, because I saw that my family was battling this for a very long time, and they were frustrated because even after acquittals, we were unable to get my grandfather's case looked at. There was no appeals. The courts denied everything that we tried to do. And you know how exhausting that could be financially. And when you have a corrupt prosecutor in a corrupt district, it's virtually impossible to get the case looked at. So we were in a rut for many years. So that's why we're so grateful and thankful for people like David Schoen, who helped us all of this way. Dr. Topeka Sam, who I came across maybe 6 years ago after visiting my grandfather. These are people who advocated for us and really just, helped us power through some of these times.
Yeah,
go back.
I'm a great fan of Dr. Topeka Sam myself. She's a true fighter for justice.
Incredible. She's incredible.
She is relentless, and I admire that. I understand that when you were 9, you began having panic attacks about your grandfather's incarceration, yet the Bureau of Prisons regulations generally say that inmates are supposed to be put as close to their family as possible, yet for some reason they sent your grandfather to a prison in Kansas when you live in Brooklyn.
Well, I'll break that down for you. So, yes, when I was a young girl and all of this happened, my father was also facing charges. So when my father went away, it was right after my grandfather, and my grandfather was convicted. And during my dad's trial, my dad was almost pushed to take a plea for one of his cases because Andrew Weissman was the lead prosecutor, and we just saw them bury my grandfather. So my father felt like if I'm ever going to see my kids again, because he was facing a life sentence as well, I'd better take a plea. Even though he wasn't guilty, he had to take a plea just to try to stay close to his family. And in that plea, the judges recommended that he was placed in New York, New Jersey, or Pennsylvania. My father was 35 years old, I want to say, 5 young children, all under the age of 12. Some of us suffered from severe anxiety. I had massive panic disorder. I couldn't even go to school. I would throw fits and cry. I couldn't sit through a day. I wasn't able to leave a visit without having a meltdown, and that was even when it was local. I wasn't able to go on a plane or travel because of my panic disorder. So the first thing that they did when they gave my dad this plea, and he took it, to stay in the area, was they shipped him to Leavenworth Penitentiary in Kansas, then Kentucky, then Illinois. So they made sure he was nowhere near his children. I didn't see him for his entire sentence. I was unable to get on a plane because of my panic disorder. Financially, with my mom being alone with 5 kids, it wasn't really easy to try to take a 12-hour road trip, and miss school and all of these things to go on a visit. So from about 13 to 19, I didn't even lay eyes on my father. And my father was like the most important person in my life. As a matter of fact, when they started getting arrested and he was home facing the trial and my panic disorder really started to take control of me, he was the one that would comfort me and calm me down. He was like my lifeline. So now, as an adult, reading the sentencing paperwork and seeing that these same prosecutors that made sure my father was so far away from me were the ones that were keeping paid informants who violated their protection, murdered people while they were being paid informants. They got to go to their desired facilities. They got to be in a bed in New York and New Jersey when that could have went to a father that wanted to be around his children. Instead, it went to men that were being paid, that were pulling triggers and killing people, being protected by prosecutors. So that's where a lot of my frustration comes now, because I look at my young child version of me and saw all my suffering. And a lot of people will say, well, if your family was involved in certain things or whatever, it's their fault. But no, these prosecutors knew my father and my grandfather were innocent of a lot of these crimes, knew that they were the reason that a lot of this stuff was, incited and went on, and they still had no problem with destroying people's lives, keeping them away from their families, and doing more damage, just so that they could get a promotion.
Folks, if you're just tuning in, we're talking to Jackie Orena. Her grandfather, Victor Orena, remains incarcerated for a murder he did not commit. Federal prosecutors, including Andrew Weissman, knew that at the time that he was sentenced. They have mistreated him extraordinarily, and we are going to continue to talk to Jackie when we come back on the other side. Also, get ready. We're going to be taking your phone calls at 800-848-9222. That's 800-848-9222. Or go to askstone@rogerstoneshow.com. Send your questions to askstone@rogerstoneshow.com. And then we'll be right back with a little bit more of Jackie Orena. This is a woman who has shown enormous courage as a younger woman and as a granddaughter. And I've seen her social media. She's never given up this tremendous fight to right the wrong done to her family. And we will be back with a little bit more of Jackie on the other side. So stay with us here on the Roger Stone Show on the Red Apple Audio Networks, and we'll be right back. Welcome back. We're still talking to Jackie Orena. Jackie Orena is the granddaughter of Vic Orena. Vic Orena was falsely charged with a murder he did not commit and remains incarcerated for a life sentence. It is absolutely clear now, based on evidence brought forward by criminal defense attorney David Schoen, that prosecutor Andrew Weissman and others were well aware of the fact that Vic Orena was innocent of this particular crime, and they let him go to prison anyway. It's not surprising that Andrew Weissman would go on to be the de facto head of the Russian collusion hoax. And don't kid yourselves, folks. You can see him over at doing as a legal analyst for MSNBC, where he's up to his neck in the Jack Smith extra constitutional efforts to destroy Donald Trump, the 2020 elections, and of course January 6th, through the actions of his longtime associate and protege Lisa Monaco, who was number 2 under Merrick Garland. So I think his illegal activities have continued. Jackie, before we let you go, I wanted you to have your say here, because it's not often you can get an audience here. We have a huge audience listening to you now, particularly in the greater New York area, New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, Eastern Pennsylvania. I want to make sure that you've said everything that you want to say about what your family has gone through. And we have about 2 minutes, so I'm going to turn it over to you.
Okay. No pressure. Well, what I really want to say is this does apply to everybody, because how can we expect due process when the judges hold exculpatory evidence, prosecutors use paid informants. Every U.S. citizen should be afraid. I mean, it's so corrupt, and it goes from the prosecutors to the, agents and across the board. They're so quick to destroy our family name. You know, they want to define us as, say, a gangster. But who's involved in organized, coordinated illegal activities? It's them. They're racketeering. They have violent crimes. They're allowing informants to get away with murder. They're aiding in murder. Linda Vecchio was a special agent, and we know that he was giving addresses for his killers, his paid informants, to go out and try to attack my family members. I mean, the courts knew about this. The prosecutors knew about this. This is such an abuse of power. It's an obstruction of justice, and it's really scary. So I just feel that all Americans out there should be aware of this. They should know their tactics and what they do, because if they could put innocent people away and destroy their name and try to make them feel bad about where they come from, they could do it to anybody. They used my grandfather and Michael Sessa as examples, and it's horrible. And I hope that people are out there. I hope that this message could get to the president, and that we can have some compassion for these men and, just bring them home. They were railroaded, and it's not okay. I want to start seeing RICO charges for these prosecutors and the ones that are committing the crime, because they're so quick to do it to our families. What about them?
You raise an excellent point. If you have listened to these interviews today with the criminal defense attorney and constitutional lawyer David Schoen, or our great conversation with Jackie Orena, and you agree that Vic Orena and Michael Sessa should get justice, that they, in their 90s, both in poor health, that they should be released, then you can write to President Donald Trump, 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, I believe is the address, and tell the president that you agree with the recommendation of David Schoen in the matter of justice for Vic Orena and Michael Sessa. Jackie, I want to thank you. Very courageous to come on the show today and talk about what I know, having been through it myself, is a very trying and difficult time. I know you have been guided by your faith and your family and your friends, and I salute you for never giving up in your efforts to establish the truth and the innocence of your grandfather. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless.
All right, folks, we'll be right back, and when we do, we're going to take your questions. That number, 800-848-9222. It's Roger Stone on the phone, in the zone. You can call us on the other side.
Thanks for listening to The Roger Stone Show. You can hear The Roger Stone Show Sunday afternoons at 3. If you like the podcast, share it with your friends and listen anytime at WABCRadio.com and download the WABC Radio app. Hit that subscribe button on all major podcast platforms. Plus, follow WABC on social, on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and X. See you next time for a new episode, so you never have to wonder,
what the heck is going on here?
This is Roger Stone. The holidays are here, and it's the time of year when travel, crowds, and cold weather mean one thing. Everybody's getting sick. And in moments like this, you don't want to rely on the bureaucracy, the nonsense, or the slow-moving medical machine. You want control. You want to be prepared. You want options. That's why I want to tell you about All Family Pharmacy, a company that actually puts you in charge of your health. You can go to allfamilypharmacy.com/stone, place your order online, and a licensed physician reviews it. Once approved, your medication ships directly to your doorstep. Fast, private, and secure. So whether you're looking for ivermectin, antibiotics, or everyday maintenance medications, All Family Pharmacy now has you covered. No waiting rooms, no runaround, no interference. This holiday season, don't gamble with your health or your family's health. Stay prepared, stay protected, stay in control. Visit allfamilypharmacy.com/stone and now save 10% with code STONE10. Take charge of your health, because nobody cares about your freedom more than you do.